there, it's Val. Welcome to my bullet journal setup for 2025. This is going to be my yearly setup, and by the time you're seeing it, I'm aware it's long overdue, so you must have most likely set up your journal for the upcoming year. But I hope you can still take away some inspiration from this, either for your monthly setups, for your themes, and mid-journal layout ideas for when you swap your journal, or maybe you're watching this from the future and you can take something away for the upcoming years. Usually for my bullet journal setups, I try to do something either book based or fandom based or based on a series I'm liking. But at the point when I was setting up my yearly setup, I couldn't really think of a series or book I had enough ideas for to translate into a yearly setup, and also a fandom that I would want to be there for an year. So I ended up choosing a very simple cottagecore theme. So theme is mushrooms and coffee, if you've not already seen the title, that is. And I have like a lot of coffee stickers and ephemera that I discovered when I was organising my stationery and my journaling supplies at the end of the year. So I'm hoping to be able to use up a bunch of those because I've had them for quite some while, and I want to do something coffee themed as well. Initially I was thinking maybe coffee and bookstore kind of vibes, but I have something similar planned for a future monthly setup where you will be seeing more of these coffee stickers and coffee ephemera and just a cozy vibe. So for the cover page, I have painted a bunch of mushrooms. Our colour palette is red and white and browns and some very muted and dark greens just for some mosses, because while I painted in the mushrooms, I felt like just the mushrooms were not doing it justice. It seemed to be missing something, so I have ended up adding some mossy bits to it, and the brown is obviously of colour that you can see tying in both the coffee and the mushrooms. I've also painted some on the left, and on the left I've created a front pocket. I've seen a lot of other journalists do this with their front covers, and it kind of makes sense because your front, the first page, is kind of glued to that cover page. So using it as a pocket to store all my scraps from Dutch doors and just from scraps to cover up mistakes is a good idea. I also did not glue up the painting I did for the mushroom. You must have seen that I did it on like a square scrapbooky paper on that rectangular brown cutout of paper for the cover page. What I have done is I only glued it down the three sides, and I've used it as a tiny pocket to keep my letter in it. So you must have seen people do a letter to you or a letter to future me in their bullet journals, and I thought it would be a good idea, so I wrote myself a little letter that I will open in 2026, and I've put that in that little pocket on the cover page. Next comes my 2024 wrap up and my things to do or things to look forward to in 2025. And I've decided not to dwell on it too much, so these are two pages that I have taken all the goals last year set up It's just that I was not able to complete
I did
all
end
of
up using
them.
those last year.
So for this year, I've decided to create like
carry
a
these
flow
forward.
chart,
And by planning this
I
journal
will keep
setup,
breaking
I
down
try
my goals
to
further
look
and further.
at all my past
I'm
spreads
not
and
doing
see
the entire
what pages
flowchart
I've
on
been
camera
using,
because I
pages
needed
I've been
to
struggling to use.
separately.
Only kept those pages that are really
Without the
useful
camera
to me.
interrupting me because the tripod always gets
Next,
in my
I've
way.
got my 2025 goals
All I've done
list.
here is listed the
When I was
few
writing up my
categories
journal for last year and doing my yearly
I
review,
did
I realised
kind of
that I've
a
not
Dutch
been
store. I like
able
cut
to tick off
a lot of my
goals.
what's it called? I cut the header of that page initially because I wanted to keep it the same heading for the 2 pages, but then I decided I don't want to do that, so I had to glue back the piece I had cut out from the right of the page. So I'm going to do 2 pages just for the flowchart and the next 2 pages for the timeline, because the reason I glued it back was because that kind of cut only works if you have the title at the top. Because I put the title on the centre to make my flowchart work better for me, I sort of had to resort to gluing it back. I think it looks cute. It will look even better once it's all filled up. And of course I painted a mushroom in the top corner. Last year I did a 24 things to do in 2024 setup where I had listed 24 goals for myself, but this year I don't have a set number of goals. All I want to do is, I've got these areas I want to achieve something in, and I've got rough plans, so all of them need to be broken down to make them more achievable for me. And on the next page I've got a rough timeline. I might do a separate video showing you how I use this, because in this one all I do is set up the pages, do a bit of scrapbooking, add a few stickers, add some lettering, and paint that odd little mushroom there because the theme is mushrooms. So the main idea behind this page, these 2 pages, is that I will create a rough timeline which will kind of outline how I plan on achieving the goals I will make for myself on the previous pages, so I'm not getting overwhelmed all at once and I can focus on certain areas over certain weeks or certain months, and then I'm not getting overwhelmed by thinking about the bigger picture. And it also kind of helps you to achieve them and gives you something to look back on each time you're planning your monthly setups, so your yearly goals don't just stay forgotten in that spread you set up at the beginning of the year, which happened with me last year. Next I'm bringing my birthdays or special dates page. So I had these little coffee sticky note thingies lying around, and I'm using them as little presents, little boxes. So I've glued 12 of them, and representing the 12 months of the year. I'll jot down any specific dates, birthdays, anniversaries, etc. important to me in those particular boxes, and then I have glued these little bows on top of these gift boxes. I've also got my presents page where I can jot down any present ideas I get for these occasions, and just playing around a bit with stickers and mushroom doodles there. I'm just gonna highlight every alternate line of the page just to add a bit of colour in there. Even though colour is probably not the right word, I'm using grey, but you get the bit. I'm adding a bit of flair to the page. And there she goes, cutting away another page to do like a double heading kind of page. So this is my social media ideas spread. I have got a lot of things going on with social media and I get all these ideas all the time, so I thought it would be a good idea to jot them down in my journal. I was using a Notion template for this earlier, which I still have, but what I find is using the Notion template for long-term ideas helps me better because I can use it like on a very long time scale, scaling years. Some of the ideas I have on there were like 2 years old or something, even older than that. But this is more yearly focused, and it's something that I can put my deadlines and dates on and work in, have a look at whenever I'm planning my monthly to-do lists or weekly to-do lists, and just see what is going on, what ideas I want to work on this week. So I've just got a simple table spanning 4 pages, and all I do is note down a number, the title, a rough tentative deadline for that particular idea, and then the date. Next I'm bringing up my social media stats page, and it is very similar to the stats page I did last year. So I'm drawing tiny little envelopes, and on the flap of the envelope usually I end up writing the number of followers I have on a particular date, and then on the bottom part of the envelope I would usually put in the date. So I've drawn 3 groups of 6 envelopes each. One is going to be for my YouTube, one for my Bookstagram, and one for my art Instagram. Next I have been gluing some more of the choppy framey bits that you've been seeing all over the setup. Added a few coffee stickers and did a few shadows for our envelopes as well. Next come my reading spreads. Last year I decided to scrap up my reading journal and merge both into my main bullet journal, and that has been going very well for me because I do not journal a lot about my reading anyway. So I have my A to Z in books tracker. I've drawn 26 mushrooms for that, and it is kind of a tracker where I try to read one book starting with each letter of the alphabet during the year. Next up, I've got my reading matrix, and this is similar to a book bracket, which you might have seen in the journaling community or over Bookstagram. So this is similar to that, but what it does is you kind of get to rank every book you read, and that way you can kind of not only come up with like the top book you've read that year, but kind of a ranking for every book of the month. So like you put one favorite book from every month in the matrix, and then you can kind of rank those 12 books by pitting them against each other. So I will fill this up and let you know about it in more detail when I get to the point of filling it, if it's too confusing. But this was basically an idea I took from another another YouTuber, another journaling YouTuber called Jashi Cohen. Next I've got my Future Me Problem spread, which is just me doodling future me problems and leaving 2 pages for it. So if I randomly get a trouble or a worry in my mind that I can't be bothered to tackle right now, this week, or even over the course of the month, I just jot it down there. So it's kind of like an yearly brain dump rather than the brain dumps I do every month. Next I'm making myself a reusable self-care bingo. So I did a self-care bingo last year in one of my monthly spreads, and I found it quite useful. It is very cute, but it's something that I would want to have for myself every month. But then also it can get very tedious to draw over the same spreads every month. So what I did was I tried to create a reusable self-care bingo, and once it's all done, I'm going to glue a layer of contact paper on top of it, which is basically like a thin plastic film, so I can use this same bingo every month, and I can fill it in with a whiteboard marker, and then at the end of the month I can wipe it all and restart. I'm also going to make this bingo more fun by giving each of the tasks some points. So for the tasks I find easier to do from the self-care bingo, I'll allot them each 1 point. The tasks that are of medium difficulty, I'll allot them 3 points each, and tasks of higher difficulty get allotted 5 points. And then I've got a cup-based point tracker at the bottom of the page, where, because it's going to be a reusable tracker, I still want some way to be able to track my points, so I can have a look at the end of the year and see how I was doing, which months I was performing better in, and kind of just be able to reflect on that. So I've made a tracker below where I can kind of count up the points at the end of every month, and maybe the next month I try to score a bit higher than the previous month, so we can see how that goes. On the right, is it? Yes, on the right there I've got my Worry Not page, which I forgot to film, so hence the bit jump here. I basically did not realise that my camera had died, yay me. So I've made sort of a flow chart which acts as a crisis management plan if I'm worrying about something or something's really overwhelming me, and it kind of acts as a cheat sheet, so I can kind of reflect on what is worrying me, and if it is something I can work on, if my worry is just hypothetical, and if it is something I can work on, how I can plan it. So I have made this page kind of detachable, so I cut the page out and then secured it back with washi tape on, so whenever I want to work on this I can just detach that page out of my journal and then journal about this. So I still have the prompts, but I don't have to kind of flip through pages every time, and I can journal about these in the same journal, if that makes sense. And for my plan time, this is kind of a continuation of the previous page, and kind of got a bit of strategies on how I can kind of plan and move forward if I'm feeling stuck. And I've done my little plans in sort of mushrooms, although my first mushroom kind of did not turn out the way I wanted it to, so I decided to scrap it out and redo it, which is where the scraps from my first cover folder, front page folder, come in handy. And on the left here, no, on the right here, I'm sorry, I'm so bad at directions sometimes, especially when I'm in a flow and I can't think. So on the right here I've got a focus on what you can control page, and this is just kind of like a code page where I've just put little mushrooms and added things that are in my control. So when I'm worrying I can kind of think about how to direct that attention on things that I can focus on that can help me, rather than pondering over something hypothetical. And I've done the same mushrooms because I was really enjoying doodling them, and I've kind of went a bit more loose with them as I was progressing. So I've just doodled them very roughly, and then I added a bit of moss there, a few scrapbook paper, because I can't do my spreads without scrapbooking. It's a need. It's the best part of journaling, honestly, after lettering, or maybe before lettering. I don't know, I don't have a favourite, I guess. So yeah, that's me just tying in the spread with adding more stickers and stuff to kind of make it more in line with the theme. And lastly, I've got my ear in pixel spread, because as cute as I find mood trackers, I find it very hard to keep up with them when they are monthly, and it is a lot of work to make a very cute mood tracker and then end up not using it consistently. So I think I would rather use those kind of elaborate apps for tracking goals, and I'm going to use a much sophisticated year in pixel spread for filling in, for tracking moods or illnesses, things like that, to kind of spot any patterns or stuff, or just keeping a track of them. And instead of making it very colourful, my key will be black and white, so I'll just use a black pen to kind of draw different shapes in the grid based on my mood, so it doesn't take me a lot of effort to fill in that mood tracker, which I think is what leads to me not being able to fill it very often. And here's my final flip through, which I ended up talking over because I was yapping about my mood tracker. But I hope you enjoyed this video and that you are able to take away something from it for your own journaling or planning journey. And I'll see you in the next one.